Hello friends. I've already made several videos about buying used cars in Montenegro, but today we're going to talk about buying a new car in Montenegro. Well, mainly because I now have this experience myself. Before this, I bought used cars in Montenegro several times, drove them for a while, and then changed them. Now I bought a new car. Why is it profitable to buy a new car now, and why have so many people started doing this? I mean, if you look before, people would come and buy used cars. Very few people bought new ones. Now the situation is different. Among my clients who have arrived relatively recently or who are simply changing cars, most have bought new cars. What's the reason? The thing is, car prices have gone up a lot, especially for used cars. Prices for new cars have also increased, but not by much. It doesn't hit your wallet that hard, but prices for used cars have risen quite significantly. For comparison, when I bought a car 7 years ago, it was 6 years old at the time, and I bought that car for 3.5 times less than the price of a new car of the same brand. Now, prices like that are nowhere to be found. Now, when I look at the same brand of car and compare them, a 6-year-old car costs only half as much as a new one. And maybe, in fact, that's actually a fair price because over 6 years, a car typically goes through about half of its useful life. At least its normal life, not the kind where it's constantly in the shop. So basically, they knock off half the price. Maybe that's actually a reasonable price. I don't know. But still, somehow, I just don't feel like buying used cars for a lot of money. That's why many people look at these prices for used cars and think, damn, for example, if we're talking about, say, Volkswagen, buying a 6-year-old car for 14,000 just doesn't feel right. Let's just buy a new one for 27,000 instead. Well, that's pretty much how I thought too, and decided I'd buy a new one. How do you choose a car? Well, to be honest, you at least roughly decide what you actually want online. I have to say that all the dealerships in Montenegro, I've checked quite a few pretty decent websites, quite detailed, with prices listed. That is, it's very rare to find a dealer whose website makes you dig around for a long time trying to find the price, or where things are unclear. Basically, with most of them, everything is straightforward and easy to figure out. So you pick out options on the website, and then once you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 car brands, you go to the dealership and check them out in person. If you want, you can basically book a test drive if that's something you're interested in. The dealerships are located in Podgorica. I don't know if all of them are, but at least, let's say, the vast majority are. It's not as convenient as if they were in your own city, but on the other hand, at least they're all basically in the same city. You come to Podgorica, and it only takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get from one dealership to another, so you can visit all the ones you want in a single day. That's a good thing. I talked to dealers at 3 different dealerships. I picked out 3 cars I wanted to buy, went there, talked to them, and with some of them I spoke on the phone the first time. Some of them even have chat features on their websites, which I also use to communicate. And I have to say, overall, I like the experience of dealing with their customer support. They give detailed answers, they're honest, and they don't try to exaggerate the advantages of their cars if those advantages aren't really there. They openly tell you which car they think is better and which one is worse. They also speak frankly about delivery times. So overall, I enjoyed communicating with them both over the phone and when visiting the dealership. Now, about the availability of choices. Due to the pandemic, there's a global crisis. Some car components are in short supply. This has affected availability, delivery times, and so on. All of this is true. To be honest, I used to think it was all nonsense because whenever I visited car dealerships, I wondered what crisis are people talking about. Yes, there are shortages, but not for the entire model range. So, for example, in theory, a car could come with this engine, that engine, another engine, in this, that, or another configuration, and in various colors. But in practice, if you want to take a car right now, they offer you what they have: this engine, this color, this configuration. If you want it, take it. If not, you can place an order, pay a deposit, or part of the price. We'll deliver it to you after some time. As for the selection, Volkswagen, we like the T-Roc. You could say it's a Golf, but not just a regular Golf. It's like a raised Golf, basically a crossover. But this model has been discontinued. Well, how has it been discontinued? It's been updated, meaning they're starting to produce not the old T-Roc, but the new T-Roc. Production is starting sometime at the beginning of this year, and by the time they start making it and it gets delivered here, plus there's already some kind of waiting list for it, there's a queue. In short, they promised to deliver it to us by 2023. We said, guys, it's a great car. We really like it, but let's keep looking. We went to Toyota. The Toyota CHR is an amazing car, a hybrid. By the way, Toyota in general has amazing hybrids. I think that probably they are the leaders in hybrid cars in the world right now. A lot of people are buying their hybrids. By the way, near my house, my building is small with just over 30 apartments, and there are already 2 or 3 hybrid Toyotas parked there. So the car is popular, it's beautiful, and you could take it right away. We went to Mazda. You get into the Mazda and you realize that you no longer want a Toyota, you want a Mazda. Although from a logical point of view, maybe the Toyota actually makes more sense since it's a hybrid, uses very little fuel. And in principle, if you're buying a car, not for a year or two, but for the long term, say 8 to 10 years, and over that time the savings would add up to a significant amount of money. I did the math and the numbers are really significant. So I estimated that over 10 years of use, this car would save at least 8,000 euros compared to a regular gasoline car. That's a decent amount of money. Basically, a third of the car's cost is saved just because you bought a hybrid instead of a gasoline car. And actually, the hybrid doesn't cost much more. The gasoline version, the equivalent non-hybrid with the same features, is only 2,000 euros cheaper than the hybrid. So the difference isn't that big. But you could save 10,000. Minus the extra cost of the hybrid, that comes out to 8. That's it. Yeah. But when you go to a Mazda dealership, you realize you want a Mazda. That's basically why I bought a Mazda. They promised to deliver the Mazda within a month. And by the way, they kept their word on the timing. In fact, I think it was even a bit faster. The car arrived in about 3 weeks. So basically, if before you used to go to the dealership and buy whatever was available, now maybe that's still possible, like with that same Toyota I mentioned, where you come in and they say, here it is, you can buy it and drive it away right now. But that's not always the case. Often you end up buying something that's still somewhere out in the ocean, and you're lucky if it's already on its way, which means it'll arrive soon. And if you're less lucky, you end up buying something that's still at the factory, not even produced yet, and it won't get here for a long time. I had a client who also recently bought Toyota Yaris Cross. Well, it was technically available, but he wanted a higher trim level. He said, I want the full package. And they promised to deliver the full package to him in 6 months. So right now, that's just the realities is considered normal. And yes, it's worth mentioning the specifics of pricing here. You can't always buy exactly what you want. For example, the car I bought could have been had for 2,000 less, and she's not much worse. Basically, all the functions are the same. The only difference is that this one has a luxury package, slightly nicer headlights, and a few other things. So in short, it's a minor luxury upgrade. Honestly, I don't really see much of a difference. I probably wouldn't have paid the extra 2,000 if I had a choice. But they told me that the luxury package is floating in the ocean and will arrive in a month. If you don't want that, you can get the regular package. It'll be 2,000 cheaper, but you'll have to wait about 5 months. I decided, fine, I'll pay the extra 2,000. So that's just the usual situation now. It's the same elsewhere. One of my clients also bought a new Hyundai. By the way, also a very good car. And by the way, among these kinds of cars, the ones I would say I could also consider for my own purchase, I'd say it's quite inexpensive and well equipped. Only 23,000 for a car with automatic transmission, with a full set of features as well, except for the head-up display. That's basically a reasonable price. So I also asked him, why did you buy the gasoline version instead of the diesel? Oh, I mean, the other way around, why gasoline and not diesel? He said, well, it was about availability. The gasoline version was in stock, but you'd have to wait for the diesel. How long? No one knows. How do you handle the paperwork? Different dealers have different approaches to their work. Toyota says, we sell you the car, we arrange the insurance for you. With the insurance, you can drive your new car for a while, even before you have license plates. Then, when you get back to your city, you can start the process of getting your plates. We'll prepare the full set of documents for you and hand them over. So, when you arrive, you just submit them to the MAB Motor Vehicle Registration Office. Mazda takes a different approach. They say, we submit the documents to the MAB ourselves. How? The MAB is in Yartsevo, not Podgorica, you're in Podgorica. They say, no problem, we send everything by mail. But in the end, by the way, I took the documents from them and submitted them myself. Simply because, well, I know how to do it. I mean, I don't know how to prepare documents for cars. That's not something I do professionally. My approach is a bit different. But as for going to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and submitting the package of documents they prepared, there's nothing complicated about that. So I told them, let me do it rather than you sending it by mail. I'll just go to the MAB myself in the morning and submit the documents. It'll be faster that way. Basically, the point is that someone else prepares the documents for you. Essentially, you come to them, pick up the car, and it already has the full set of documents. The license plates will already be on it. There will also be that local registration card. I don't remember what it's called in Russian. And then some people say, we'll prepare the document package for you, but you'll have to submit it yourself. But in reality, there's not much difference. The main thing is that both parties prepare the documents, and submitting them is not difficult in any case. Yes, there's a funny feature with the Japanese cars, and I think it's the same for all of them. In Mazda, in Toyota, it's the same thing. They don't include a spare tire in the kit and the trunk, and both brands actually have space for it, but they just don't put one in. So instead, they came up with a 24-hour roadside service. So specifically, not just in Montenegro, but all over the world in particular. In Montenegro, despite the country's small size, they have 180 partner centers. The idea is this: call them, no matter where you are, and within half an hour, someone will come to you and change your tire. Honestly, I'm sitting here not sure whether to take their word for it or to just find a spare tire and put it in the trunk myself. After all, I've never driven without a spare tire in my life. It just feels more reassuring to have one. But that's the trend now. Although I haven't noticed this with European car manufacturers. I was at Volkswagen, and there, in the showroom, every car has a proper spare wheel. But Japanese car manufacturers don't do that. They think we've arranged for you to get roadside assistance. You should be happy you simply don't need a spare tire. Well, maybe that's true. Of course, I can't say for sure. Now, about comprehensive insurance and the overall cost of registration. If you want comprehensive insurance, buy it. If you don't, buy it anyway. Most people who buy a new car, they do get comprehensive insurance. By the way, I got it too. Honestly, I think it's really just a psychological thing. It costs about 2% of the car's price per year. And honestly, I doubt that it's actually worth it because over the past 10 years, I've only spent 200 euros on bodywork. Once some snow fell on my hood well, on a different car, my old one. That's it. But still, it feels more reassuring, so I decided to buy it too. Comprehensive insurance for my car costs 642 euros. If you cover 10% of the damage yourself, then everything above that 10% is covered by the insurance company. If you want to buy full comprehensive insurance, it costs, I don't remember the exact amount, over 1,000 euros. Ah, right. So you can choose to buy full coverage, partial coverage, or not buy it at all. I bought partial coverage for 642 euros, plus there was also registration and some fees. Honestly, I didn't even check the documents to see the exact amount. So I can break down the costs for you in this case. Plus, there's the compulsory third-party liability insurance policy. Even though you have comprehensive insurance, it doesn't exempt you from having the third-party liability insurance. You need to have third-party liability insurance no matter what. Plus, I immediately bought a driver's kit. It includes a yellow vest, light bulbs, which, by the way, don't fit my car, but you're required by law to carry them. What else is included? A first aid kit and a warning triangle for emergencies. So altogether comprehensive insurance, third-party liability insurance, registration, and this beginner driver's kit cost me 1,100 euros. And one more interesting, or rather useful piece of information. If you buy a new car, unlike a used one, you don't have to pay the 5% tax. That is, if you buy a used car, you as the buyer have to pay a 5% tax. If you buy a new car, you are exempt from paying this tax. And probably the last thing worth mentioning, whether to buy a car as a private individual or through a company. In the vast majority of cases, I recommend everyone to buy a car as a private individual. Some people, many, in fact, advise buying a car through a company. I honestly have no idea where this came from or what the logic behind it is. Well, the backstory is that if a foreigner buys as a private individual, the license plates are a bit different. Supposedly because of this, the police stop you more often and fine you more. In reality, guys, this is all complete nonsense. The police in Montenegro are actually quite reasonable. Because they see that the foreigner is driving, no one will stop him on purpose because of this. That's it. At the same time, if you buy a car under a company, you end up with an unpleasant obligation. Every time you leave home, you have to fill out a trip log. For example, right now I came here to this neighborhood to shoot a video. So in order to get here, if my car were registered to a company, I would have had to fill out a trip log. In other words, it's just inconvenient. Today, I already used the car 3 times. So today, I would have had to fill out 3 trip logs. Yes, it's not very difficult to fill them out, but honestly, what's the point? That's why you should buy a car as a private individual. By the way, that's exactly what I did. Of course, there can be exceptions. Exceptions are for those whose company is not just set up for residence permit, but actually operates as a real business. In this case, you can deduct the purchase amount from your taxable base, meaning you reduce so you pay profit tax, and you won't have to pay tax on dividends. So how does an ordinary person buy a car? Let's say his company is operating, and his income comes specifically from the company. So he earned some profit over the year, paid profit tax, then withdrew dividends, paid dividend tax as well. And in this way, reduced his profit by 23.35%, to be exact. He then received some money with which he bought a car. If your company is operating and you buy a car through the company, then you don't pay this 24%, well, almost 24%, I'm rounding up. So essentially, the car ends up being 24,000 cheaper. If you buy a car that is, let's say, in the mid-price range up to 30,000 euros, just calculate for yourself how much you've saved. That's almost a quarter. Basically, it's a very good discount. That's all from me. Thank you all for attention, and goodbye.